Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I just want to show you some recent acquisitions. Now, I didn't get these at a store. These are things that I am personally buying from a friend. Now, this friend just didn't want to just dump them in used bins, sell them at pennies of the dollar to local shops. So he came to me and he said, hey, I've got these CDs, and we are talking thousands of CDs. I only had maybe an hour to go through them, and I picked up a bunch of stuff here. So let's start, and I'm just going to go through these really quickly. We're going to start with the odds and ends. I have a 2 CD Dr. Demento collection here. It's not the best Dr. Demento collection because it has like later stuff. I prefer like the earlier stuff, but I thought, well, there's some stuff in there that I'm sure I'm going to enjoy. And then here's a collection of music from films of Pakistan. And of course, very much like Bollywood and stuff like that. So it's really a fascinating and fun release. And here is Christmas in the Stars, the Star Wars collection. I've never owned this on CD, and now I do. And then here's 2 related CDs. Here is Pratt and McLean. Now, this is actually a manufactured CDR. It's not like one that somebody made at home. It looks like the record company didn't really make CDs, they just made CDRs of it. So this is the album with Happy Days, and right after that I have the Laverne and Shirley Sing album, and this is just as good / bad as you would imagine. And here is a collection of Warner Brothers sound effects. I have no idea what I'm going to use this for. Okay, now I do. And here's 2 CDRs. These look like they were more homemade, but 2 Paul Anka albums. Next up, the first Photomaker album, and that features members of bands like the Raspberries. Can, the singles, and I love Can, and I didn't have edited versions of a lot of those. Here is The Only Lick I Know by Chris Spedding, which is one of the few Chris Spedding CDs I did not own. I love his solo material. Here is a collection of Icelandic pop and slightly prog songs. Very interesting collection. Here's a collection by Brian Setzer. This features some Stray Cats tracks and features tracks off of his EMI albums, including the song The Knife Feels Like Justice, which is my favorite solo Brian Setzer song. Here is Danny Wilde. A lot of you know him as one half of the Rembrandts. I know him as 1/4 of Great Buildings and one half of the Rembrandts. This is more sort of heartland rock, kind of, I'd say John Cougar Mellencamp-y, but it's still good to have in my collection. Here's a compilation by Don Dixon. He's a producer and artist. And if you're into power pop or alternative guitar pop from the late 80s and early 90s, this has the song Praying Mantis, which is off his first album, and that's just killer. So if you want to look up Don Dixon, Praying Mantis, you can do that after this video. It's a great song. Now let's dip into the 80s with this Yellow Magic Orchestra compilation. They are a Japanese synth pop band featuring Ryuichi Sakamoto and, of course, Yukihiro Takahashi. I believe the third member was like Harumi Hosono or something to that effect. It's a great collection by Yellow Magic Orchestra if you're interested in checking out their stuff. Here is a twofer by Peter Schilling. This features the English language, Things to Come, and then the German equivalent to that. Here's a couple soundtracks. Don't know how to pronounce it, but it's absolutely beautiful music. The soundtrack to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And does anybody remember the 1980s movie The Idolmaker starring Ray Sharkey? There is the soundtrack to that. And finally, let's move into the oldies, things that I got. Some of the stuff you will be hearing on Ski Lodge. Here is Love, Black Beauty. This was an unreleased album from 1973 that they later put out on CD with some bonus material. Here's a group called Mason, and this has some ties to that Dave D. Bicky, Dicky, Titchy, Doc group. But this is nice British kind of CSN influenced material from the early 70s. And then, of course, you have the Arrows, and that's the singles collection. The Arrows was the band who wrote and recorded I Love Rock and Roll, which, of course, Joan Jett later re-recorded. So it's glammy rock and roll, really good. Here's, I believe, the first 2 albums by Jennifer Warnes on one CD. Here is a compilation of rare Burt Bacharach recordings. Well, actually not by him, just sort of oddball recordings of some of his tracks. Not necessarily like the famous versions, but it's a really cool collection. Here is The Many Moods of John Schroeder. This is a great collection of instrumental tracks, and I feature some of this stuff on my Ski Lodge show. And now 3 titles by Jackie DeShannon. Each of these have bonus tracks on them. and they are fantastic. I do have a bunch of Jackie DeShannon on CD, but I don't necessarily have these albums. So if I have any of these, then they're part of twofers and they don't have bonus tracks. So it's nice to have the individual albums with bonus tracks. Here is a band called The Bush from Rialto, California, and they're kind of garagey. Some of it is a little too hard for Ski Lodge, but there are a couple tracks that I will feature. So if you're looking for rare and unusual garage rock, this is definitely something to check out. Here's a 2-CD Lulu collection. Here's the Hep Stars featuring one of the guys who eventually went off to form ABBA, and I can't remember which guy it was, Benny or Bjorn. Let's just say it was Bjorny. And then here is a Colin Blunstone compilation. Of course, everyone knows his work with the Zombies, but this is best of his solo material. Here's a 2-CD Cher compilation that goes up to 1979, which is pretty much, in my opinion, unless you own the individual albums, this is probably the only compilation that you're going to need. And here's something called The Wallpaper of Sound, the songs of Phil Spector and the Brill Building. These are popular songs, not necessarily done by the people that you know them by, but it is a great collection there. Definitely check that out. Put that on pause. And here's Marlon Green, which is kind of a folky country thing, but it's really, really good. The Glitter Band. This was Gary Glitter's backing band, and they also made records without Gary. So this is a collection of their tracks. And finally, probably the thing I'm most excited about just to own it is a Doris Day CD, actually autographed by Doris Day. Anyway, that's it for this first go through the collection, and I'm sure that I will be making many videos in the future going through all this great, wonderful stuff that I was able to acquire from a dear friend of mine. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, and to ring that bell for future notifications. Please leave a comment below, and until the next time, remember me. I'm Steve Schnee, the CD Junkie.